I'm Rob Port from SayAnythingBlog.com. Tax relief is a big issue heading into the legislative session. Property taxes are on the minds of a lot of people, but I think a lot of North Dakotans are thinking, they're watching the state run heavy surpluses, and obviously the state has a lot of spending priorities. We're a growing state. We've got a booming economy. We've got a growing population. That means we need some more things. We need more cops. We need more roads. There are areas where we need to spend money on. But I think North Dakotans are looking to the legislature to provide some leadership on tax relief as well. What's gotten most of the attention heading into the legislative session, of course, is the governor's property tax plan. But there's another proposal I think that's pretty interesting out there. It's being introduced by my guest, Representative Scott Louser from the Minot area, Republican. Scott, what you're proposing is a 2-year holiday or moratorium, I guess, on the personal income tax. Explain what you're proposing.
Well, that's exactly right, Rob. It's a 2-year suspension of the personal income tax. It would be in effect for the next biennium, 14 and 15. And rather than just eliminating the tax, and originally I was considering just moving all the rates to zero, considering some of the carry forward and credits that people may have. This would just be a suspension of the tax for 2 years.
Now, what would happen? I mean, why a suspension as opposed to, I guess some of the other, a rate reduction or even a total removal of the tax permanently?
Well, there are proposals for reductions. If I understand right, I haven't seen all of them, and I'm not on the committee that's going to be hearing this, but I understand there's one proposal that's a 30% reduction. There's another that's a 50%. That's a reduction in the rates. This would just be a suspension for 2 years.
Now, after the 2 years, I mean, is the goal here to see what things look like without the income tax? I know that whenever we talk about big tax changes, I think people get a little nervous. I know certainly that was something when we were debating abolishing the property tax this summer. A lot of people were afraid that maybe that was too much all at once. Is your goal to maybe get rid of the tax temporarily towards looking towards a permanent, I guess, a permanent suspension of the income tax?
Well, I guess my goal would be to provide evidence that the income tax may not be needed in the future. I think on a suspension, it's more palatable to some of the legislators that are going to be considering this that might be on the fence. I guess we'll be able to gauge that once we have the hearing. But certainly, if we are able to prove that the income tax is not needed in North Dakota, a 2-year suspension would provide that evidence.
Now, to be clear, this is just for the personal income tax. This wouldn't touch the corporate income tax?
That's right. This is personal income tax only. Personal income tax only.
How big a slice of revenue is that for the state, I guess, per year or per biennium?
Well, they're projecting, I've seen projections in the upwards of $1 billion for the next biennium, so this is a pretty substantial suspension. That of course is basing projections on the rates that we're going now, so we're looking at $1 billion worth of tax savings over the next 2 years to taxpayers in North Dakota.
Oh, some of the issues here that you mentioned were some of the credits or other things that people may be applying to their income tax in the coming years, and I know certainly that was a part of Governor Dalrymple. I almost called him Governor Hoeven. Governor Dalrymple's housing incentive fund was that people would get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit against their income tax. How would you address that for people who might have credits or other things coming on their income tax if we're suspending it for 2 years?
This bill extends those credits out 5 years. So if in fact this bill was passed, those credits obviously would be a play here. So we would extend those credits for 5 years should this tax come back into play after 2 years. So there is a provision to extend those credits out further than they currently exist.
Now, give us some of the idea of the procedure. Has this bill been introduced yet? And what route will it take through the committee process?
Well, it has not been introduced. It is. I'm in the final stages. Actually, today, I hope to have all of my sponsors. So I'll have that turned in. I'm assuming that this is going to go through the Tax and Finance House on the House side. should be introduced, I would hope, in the next 3 weeks.
How is it being received by your fellow legislators? Are you going to have? Is there going to be a cross section of bipartisan support for it? Is it mostly Republican support for it? What do the co-sponsorships look like?
Well, so far the co-sponsorships have been Republican. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, and there's initial surprise reaction, I think, from some people. But there's also there's a feeling out there that I've heard a number of times inside the chamber and out, that finally somebody's proposing something like, this large. So I guess I'd have to gauge the response so far as positive. But I haven't been able to talk to all the members. Certainly that's going to come out in the testimony. I've been pleasantly surprised thus far.
Now, if we also have, obviously, on the table the governor's property tax proposal, are you looking at this as an addition to that property tax proposal, or would this be an alternative to that?
No, this is an addition.
This would be an addition to what the governor wants to do on property taxes.
Right. And keep in mind, there's going to be a number of property tax proposals. I'm considering one that is probably a little bit outside the box thinking. I've yet to finalize the wording, and I want to make sure that it's something that is even constitutionally appropriate to do for our state. But I think we're going to see probably upwards of 15 property tax-related alternatives. And hopefully the committees in both chambers can come to a consensus on what the best package would be. I think it's one of those things where the legislature does not get involved with regard to property tax. We do not assess, levy, collect, or spend when it comes to property taxes, but we are providing relief or some form of relief. So I think the time is coming soon, because that package that we provide grows larger every biennium. To have some revolutionary type of property tax change in the state. I
think you're right. Representative Louser, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bro.